it literally feels like you've had the worst hangover of your life. Your brain doesn't work, your body's exhausted, and the worst part is you don't want to eat. You don't want to eat, you don't want to drink, and you don't want to move. It's easy to really get beaten down by it because literally like you kind of feel better and all of a sudden you go down. And as you continually go through it, it kind of builds upon it. It almost starts to get worse and worse and worse. My name is Clea Sackville. I'm 26 years old. I grew up in Vancouver, Canada. Lived there pretty much my whole life, except for a few years I went away to college. I spent most of my younger years riding horses and sort of working around barns and fell in love with that. Eventually settled it down, and once I started working a consistent job, began to sort of fall in love with the gym. I do like a little bit of cardio here and there and maybe like pick up a dumbbell once or twice, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And I wasn't eating unhealthily, but I wasn't really sort of paying attention. Definitely wasn't eating as healthy as I could have been. But I always sort of had sort of a pretty good base level of sort of fitness. And, you know, I was active in school. I did play soccer, I rode horses, and I went hiking and stuff like that. But I never really had a sort of strict workout program. I sort of noticed I was getting tired. I didn't have the same energy. I didn't have the same energy to go to the gym. I didn't have the same energy to really just do anything. I would go to work and I would just come home completely exhausted, and a level of exhaustion that I never really felt before. At the time I thought it was just because I was working so much, but I also found that I had these sort of lumps starting to appear. The first one I noticed was on my collarbone. It was just sort of a small, hard little lump, and I could kind of move it around. I didn't really think much of it at first. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Until I got another one right under my armpit, and that one became quite painful. And it actually got quite inflamed, and then I noticed a few more showing up on my neck. So I just went to a walk-in clinic on my lunch break at work, and they gave me some antibiotics, and they said, well, take these, see if that takes care. Maybe it's just an infection. 2 weeks later, I felt a little bit better taking the antibiotics, but didn't really notice much of a change. So I went back and saw a different doctor at the walk-in clinic, but she subsequently sent me for a chest x-ray and blood tests. I ended up getting a call from the doctor's office when I was on a one-way train out of Vancouver to go to sort of where I lived at the time in the suburbs, telling me that I should get off the train and go to emergency right away. So they did some tests, and based on sort of those, I went in for a biopsy the next morning. A week later came back and confirmed that it definitely was Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4, which meant that that's kind of the most furthest along stage you can be. I had a sort of mass in my chest that was surrounding my windpipe, which was why it was sort of hard to breathe when I was exercising, because it was expanding and hitting that. I also had cancer in my lymph nodes, as well as my spleen and all of my bone marrow. When I found out I had cancer, this is going to sound really weird, but I was actually really relieved because finally, at least I know what's wrong with me and can sort of make a plan. I don't do well with sort of unknowns, but if I know what I'm dealing with, I'll just kind of be like, okay, like let's do the plan and let's go full steam ahead. When you're sitting there getting chemo, when you go in there the first time, you think it's going to be some like crazy thing, like you're going to feel awful right away. And I wouldn't say that right when you walk out of there. Some people do. For me, like I didn't feel awful right away. The one thing I did notice is that for about 5 days, I just didn't want to do anything. And it was like a struggle just to get out of bed or even make a decision, or someone would ask me like a question, I would just be like, I don't even know how to answer this. By my second treatment, my hair started falling out, and it fell out quite quickly, and I ended up just shaving it off. Not long after that, I lost all my eyebrows, all my eyelashes. That's when you sort of really start to realize, I think, and that's when you kind of really start to feel like a cancer patient, because all of a sudden you kind of look like what's portrayed in the media with that sort of more sick appearance. I lost about 20 pounds of muscle, and I probably gained about, I'd say, that 20 pounds back, and I don't think most of that was muscle. I think most of that was sort of fat, and that's partly what sort of motivated me. I kind of figured that I'm losing so much of my body to treatment, to this disease and whatever. I was like, why don't I take the one thing I can control and see if I can sort of make it work in my favor. Obviously, being diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, I got kind of curious as to what even the lymphatic system did. And ultimately, it's responsible for a major part of sort of clearing out infections of your body and sort of circulating your system. And the interesting thing about it is, unlike your bloodstream that it's pumped by your heart, your lymphatic system is solely, more or less, pumped by muscular skeletal movement. So here I am thinking, I was saying, so if I'm getting pumped full of chemo that my lymphatic system is circulating, how can I just be lying still all the time and expect it to function? It's totally counterintuitive to how the whole system works. 5 days a week I went to the gym, and it wasn't easy. There's some days I went there and literally sat for 5 minutes in between sets and rested because I just didn't have the energy. And I went from being able to squat 185 pounds just to barely being able to squat with like 2 10-pound dumbbells in my hand for 12 reps. At first that was really discouraging. And then I kind of realized, I was like, you know what, I'm not really working out to, be per se like strong or look good or whatever right now. I'm just like, right now I just need to work out to kind of like survive. So once I had that mentality, I just kind of like threw my like sort of ego out the window of what I thought I should be able to do and sort of just embraced what I could do and focused on getting better with that. As I started working out, my actual energy levels throughout chemo started to increase. And so I've actually felt better in between cycle 5 and 6 and 6 and 7. It would be progressively better, which is like my doctors were like, this is almost like unheard of. Like you shouldn't be feeling this good going into your 12th round of chemo, and a pretty aggressive chemo at that. So that was kind of cool. And I think it's attributed to the fact that I was, eating properly, exercising. As of my last scan, we got the results and I'm officially all clear, so in remission now. So there's no evidence of any cancer left, but I'll sort of continue to be monitored. But so for now, it's all good news. I had to put a lot of things on hold. My career was put on hold. I wasn't able to ride my horses as much. I wasn't able to sort of plan really past the next appointment or the next test because you don't really know what's going to happen. The gym gave me something to kind of consistently work towards, whether even if it was a small goal of just like lifting more that day or that week or whatever. It was sort of really self-esteem boosting, apart from just the physical changes, which it was awesome, but even just sort of the mental confidence that I gained through that, I think played a big role in sort of how I handled treatment and how I'm doing now. I really do think that, it's important to feed your body what it needs. It's important to exercise, and I think those can play a huge role in sort of specifically cancer patients, but really anybody, in making your overall sort of quality of life just better. Don't be afraid to share your stories, whether it's just a transformation story or something like mine where you're going through sort of a disease or anything. There's a huge open community, whether it be on Body Space, on social media. It can be quite a good thing and it can be quite supportive. And I would highly encourage you to share it in a positive way, because you never know who you might impact or who can help support you, because that's definitely what I found.